Hi there. Let's take a look at the rectangular selection tool today inside of Photoshop. We are using the first and foremost tool in the toolbox in Photoshop here, rectangular marquee selection tool. By default, it should be set to new selection. If it's not, pay attention to what you do have it set to. We'll be looking at the add to selection, the subtract from selection, and the intersect with selection options as well. Before we actually deal with this image, or the image you'll be using specifically, let's take a look at what these four options do. The new selection, as the name implies, allows you to draw a rectangle, and if I attempt to draw another rectangle, you'll see that the previous one disappears. So no matter how many times I do this, how fast I do it, I can't make more than one rectangle. If I try to draw a rectangle around an area and I don't get it done very well, you can press Command D to get rid of the selection and drag a new one. If you notice, the crosshairs have a dot in the center, so it's very easy to drag a selection, looking at the center point of those crosshairs to make something as ideal as you need for it to be. So if I've got this one and I'm happy with it, I might go to the Add to Selection tool to then go to the next area and grab this next rectangle. I could do the same thing going here and draw another rectangle as well. As you can see, this last rectangle is a little bit larger than it needs to be. Instead of getting rid of all three of these selections, I could potentially come to the Subtract From Selection tool, and looking at this area up above, I might start a little bit to the left and above, come down and over. I could do the same thing here, coming just to the left edge of that white boundary that I want to keep. And if I'm happy with those areas, I've done a pretty good job with my selection tools to grab those three areas. I'm going to get rid of those selections. Let's go back to the new selection. If I draw a new selection, again, I can add freely. I can subtract as I see fit as well. And then finally we have this intersect option that now when I draw a box here, it's going to keep the left half of what was selected before where it met with the square that I just drew. I rarely use this option, but I think it's fair for you to see in case you find an opportunity to use it. So, Command D, getting rid of the selection. Let's take a look at how we want to be working with this shape. One thing we didn't look at yet is here under the feather option. I would encourage you to have this set at 0 for right now, and we'll talk about another way to deal with feathering in just a moment. So I'm going to make my selection here, and for now we'll talk about just this rectangular brown shape that is this print. And if I have it selected like this, I'm happy. Now before I actually separate it from the rest of the photograph, let's take a look at this feather option. If I take this layer and press Command J to separate it from the background, you'll see that by pressing Command J I now have a layer called Layer 1. My selection lines are gone, and if I turn off the background layer, we've got a really nice rectangle here that's just that artwork. The gray and white checkerboard here means that there are no pixels with information inside of them. Let's come back to the background layer, and I'm going to make more or less that same selection again. A moment ago, remember we talked about the idea that this feather is at 0. My recommendation to you is make your selection first, then come to Select, go to Modify, and choose Feather. And this is more or less saying the same thing as this box, but I'm choosing after the matter what it is I want to do. I'm going to choose a very conspicuous number like 30. And when I press OK, I want you to watch what happens to the corners here. You'll notice they rounded off. Okay, so if from the background layer I press Command J again and put it on a new layer, when I turn off the background layer, layer 2 is that new selection. Notice how fuzzy the edges are. The feather effect is actually creating a transition between totally visible pixels and invisible pixels along the edge of where the selection was made. So with the feather of 30 we have this, with the feather of 0 we had this. 30 is a bit extreme. Let's come back to the background layer and let's say that for some reason I wanted to have a smoother transition here. Feather of 0 is going to make it look like you actually use scissors to cut this out. But if I now go to select, modify feather, it's going to remember that last number, which was too big. I might choose a feather of 3 this time. Say OK. It doesn't look noticeably different when I press Command J. Layer 3 is that new layer that's been created. If I turn off the background, let's zoom in here. Kind of fuzzy. Layer 1, if we take a look over in a corner like here, you can see it's a pretty crisp edge. Layer 3, a little bit fuzzier. Okay, so this would be a good time for us to pause, for you to start experimenting with how to work with the selection tools. And then I'm going to show you a little bit how I actually want to separate the artwork from the background. And I think I'm going to be removing this white space around, as well as these 3 areas in between. So go ahead and pause for right now. Take a look at the information on your handout regarding new selections, adding, subtracting, and intersecting with selections. Okay, welcome back. Here we are back with this image, and we're going to start looking at how to make some separations of areas. My goal is to keep the frame and the print area that is not white, and then separating the wall as well. If we had something here that was a perfect square, one thing that I would suggest is using the Shift key. And if I were to use the Shift key as a new selection, holding the Shift key down first and dragging, if I needed a perfect square, I'd be able to make one. So if I look right here, we can see that there's a slightly darker brown region, and then there's a lighter brown region. I'm going to try holding the Shift key, clicking and dragging. And we can see that that area is not a perfect square. Command D, getting rid of the selection. Let's look at the black and white areas combined here. If I wanted to grab just those with the Shift key, you can see that that quite literally is a perfect square. So if I wanted to grab just those things, or grab something that was a perfect square, holding the Shift key would be a great way to do it. If I saw a shape and could find the center very easily, I can start from that middle point, holding down the Option key. If I click and drag, my shape is being created from the center outward. We know that this is a square already, so if I cheat and hold the Shift key as well, I can actually draw a shape out from the center. Command D. Let's estimate this being the middle of the whole brown, black, and white print. And let's see if I'm correct. Option key, clicking, dragging outward towards one of the corners. And you can see that that's a near ideal way for us to be making a selection of that based on the center. You can see that the upper region is a little bit high. I have a little bit of white space up above, but I've reached the bottom of the print down here below. I'm going to actually come upwards a little bit. Try to equalize the amount of negative space above and below. And if I do that, the last thing I'll show you here is that when I move the cursor inside of the selection, you can see we have a little white arrow, which means I can actually move this. I can use the cursor to click and drag, trackpad or mouse to click and drag, or I can use the arrow keys and with very fine increments move this selection around to where I want it to go. So if this was the area alone I wanted, I could be pressing Command J, and you can see here that we would have that region picked out all by itself. Okay, let's do some house cleaning here. I'm going to Shift click, grab all 3 of these layers and delete them. Say yes, get rid of my selection. We're back here to the original image, and I said I wanted to take the entire image, separate it from its background. We'll go ahead and do that first. Drawing a rectangle here, new selection. I'll drag a box around the image and the frame. I'm going to come up ever so slightly. I can see I have a little bit of the wall showing here. I'll press the down arrow, press Command J, and I'll have the artwork separated from the background. That's one of my first ideals. Going back to the selection tool, I will come to the inner boundaries of the frame, clicking, dragging, I now have the entire artwork short of the frame. I will come to the subtract tool and remove the artwork on the interior. Not done yet though. I've removed everything here. For example, if I press delete right now, you can see these white boxes still exist. Arguably, I could continue doing it that way, but I want to show you how, switching back to the add tool, I can come back and grab this. I can come back and grab this. And finally, I can come back and grab this. And now by pressing delete, we can see that layer 1 all by itself is the brown areas, the black areas, and the frame. We've separated all that, getting rid of the selection. We've separated all that from what we had here originally. So for the sake of demonstration, we've got a good idea now of how the rectangular tool works. With the video done now, I want you to take a look at the handout and see how the Shift key, Option key, and feather settings work for you. Remember, we're not talking about the feather setting here. We're talking about under Select, Modify, and because I don't have a selection now, it doesn't show. Select, Modify. Now we can actually apply it, the feather option. If I was done with this project right now, I would save it. So for you, that should be the same thing that you do as well. Thanks for watching.